Hey guys, what's going on? It's Blake Ruffino from Are You Serious Sports. And this AYS short is brought to you by BetOnline.ag. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to bet on all your sporting action. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, odds, and updates. It's literally the best way for you to place all your bets, and the best thing is it's free to sign up. Head on over to their website. Again, that's betonline.ag. Use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus for your first deposit. Again, that's betonline.ag. Betonline.ag. All right, we are here with our good friend Sean Fox. You can follow him on Twitter. You know what? One of the best follows on Twitter, Sean, I got to tell you, at Fox for Sports Talk. We're going to get into a lot here. We're going to get some LSU football, LSU basketball, Will Wade, etc. Hopefully we have this up, Sean, before LSU and Arkansas tip off. But it's great to have you on, man. Thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
Thank you, man. We talked a little bit off the air, man. I've been following the rise of Ruffino. So, man, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, man. And look, let's just start off there. Let's start with the basketball game because it's coming up on us. Hopefully, we, like I said, have this up before. LSU 0-2 against Eric Musselman and Arkansas. Do you think that they're able to get the win today? Look, they only lost one in Bud Walton just a couple of weeks ago. How do you see this game playing out for the Tigers and Razorbacks?
And are we on Will Wade's last stand? Are we in whenever this thing runs, and obviously they're going to make it to the NCAA tournament, but once this is over, is it over for Will? Will that be extra motivation for this team? They sure looked like at the start of the game yesterday. I mean, that team came out with their hair on fire, and for 16 minutes, that was some of the most dominant basketball I've seen all year, 34-9. It was ridiculous. I thought they were going to win by 100 at one point. I was like, this is as flawless as a basketball team could play on both sides of the court. Then it got really, really way more interesting than it probably should have late.
Right.
But I think sometimes you can relax a little bit and get lax, and those things tend to happen. But, Blake, go back to last year. It was sometimes the team's just better than you. And how many times did Alabama beat LSU? It felt like till LSU finally beat Alabama the last game of the PMAC. Wasn't it 5 or 6 games in a row?
Right. Yeah, Will Wade had not beaten Nate Oates yet at Alabama.
And I'm a big Musselman guy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm also a big Will Wade guy. But if it wasn't Will Wade, I was definitely a Musselman guy at LSU. And he has certainly proven those of us who thought he was a good coach right. LSU seemed to take a turn south for 2 reasons. One, Xavier Pinson being out was obviously significant. That's your primary ball handler. He's out. It's going to be tough. But also, they blew that 8-point lead at home to LSU second. And if you look at all the losses this season, that's probably the one that pisses you off the most because you were up 8 late in that ball game and you absolutely pissed down your leg and let it get away. Bud Walton Arena game. I think that's the toughest place to play in the SEC outside of Rupp Arena. In fact, you can make the argument it might be when they're good. I think that place is so underrated. Like, they love their basketball, and like Rupp is kind of like they're into it, but it's more like, dude, the folks in Arkansas, they are into it. So I think that's the toughest place to play. They played well. I think Arkansas is the better team. I don't think it's by much. I do think LSU can go in and give them a game. And I do think, they're going to play for Wade. Is that going to be enough? We'll see. If you're looking for a pick, golly, I hate to do it, but I'll probably go Arkansas close.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with you there just because it's kind of like, Sean, you got to see it happen before, like the last game against like Alabama. Like I picked Alabama in the pregame, and I'm like, look, I just want to see it. Do I think that they can win? Yes, absolutely. But let's see how it goes. I want to get to you on Will Wade, but I want to talk about this game just a little bit before we get to Will. Something that I'd kind of taken a little heat from fans on was getting Efton Reed the ball offensively and kind of getting out of the way. Well, yesterday, he kind of goes right. He goes off. I wonder, Sean, is that something that Will can now utilize? Say, hey, Efton, you got to find a way to stay out of foul trouble, but we need you offensively. And is that something where, look, if you beat Arkansas, you maybe make a little bit of a push?
Would you agree, and I think that you would, that this is the first time all season that Efton Reed looked like a 5-star?
Correct.
He
I agree.
He looked like the dominant big man that you expected him to be. Now, everybody's going to present a different challenge, especially how they defend you. Obviously, Arkansas is going to defend you a little bit better than, or differently, actually a lot better than Missouri will.
Right.
It guards you a little bit differently. Those opportunities for Efton Reed may not be there. It may be one of those. And I think part of the mistake for Efton is, and this is just the way college basketball and the basketball's just changed through the years, is, dude, you could be 7 foot, and 10 years ago, his ass ain't going in the 3-point line. Like,
right.
Big thing down there, and you're dominating the post. Well, now you don't see that anymore. You see him step out and shoot the three. Yesterday was the first time that I saw a dominant throwback big man performance. Can he do that on a consistent basis? I mean, we're going to find out today, but I think there's 3 certains for LSU, and that's Pinson, Days, and Eason, who's just a freak show.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the 4th man? And that seems to change on a game-by-game basis. I think Murray has the most potential. I thought after that Alabama game he was going to be that guy. It looked like Reed yesterday. Can Reed do it consistently? I don't know. But I think that's the key, Blake, going forward for LSU. Can they find the consistent, where game in, game out, we can count on him? LSU hasn't had that guy all year. It's been Sharif O'Neal sometimes.
Right.
Wilkinson, when he sometimes wants to shoot the basketball, which is rare, but I mean, he's been that guy. It's never been the same guy. Can one guy emerge? I think Murray's got the most potential, and/or Reed.
It's funny you talk about Brandon Murray, because I think we talk so much about Xavier Pinson and him running through the offense, but statistically, it's actually Brandon Murray. Yesterday, he had 9 assists, and I'm thinking to myself, like, and we're pulling up the stats, and I'm like, man, it's actually the offense is so much better when Brandon Murray's kind of facilitating, let Xavier just go and score. I wonder if he's that guy today, because, look, Eric Musselman is not going to really get out coached defensively, and we've seen that at times. I wonder if Brandon Murray can get things moving today. We'll see. But something, and Sean, I want to get into, obviously, is Will Wade. And you talk about making the last stand for Will Wade. I don't know how to feel about this yet.
We've kind of gone back and forth about this on Twitter in a polite way, but
well, and thank you for being and that we're able to have some kind of concourse there, like we're not just yelling at one another.
Still do that in 2020, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully in the year of our Lord of 2022, we can have civil discourse. But we went back and forth with it, and I want to get your take on this. What do you think comes of this Will Wade thing? Now, there's so many layers, but just in a premise, what do you think comes of all of this?
Well, it kind of bothered me at first that when I hear the football is tied into basketball, I'm like, well, they're 2 different sports with 2 different coaching staffs with 2 completely different problems. But in my mind, I was thinking the Title IX issues, not the paying players. And the Our Lady of the Lake scandal. Then I was like, and that was kind of explained to me. I'm like, oh, that makes a little bit more sense. And Blake, I'll just ask you, who hired Jay Johnson?
Scott Woodward.
Who hired Kim Mulkey?
Scott Woodward.
You know where I'm going? Who hired Brian Kelly?
Scott Woodward.
Okay.
Right.
I think Scott Woodward likes Will Wade, but will he end up falling on the sword because now it's his opportunity to completely clean house and show the NCAA, look, I got rid of all the issues. All the problems are gone. And maybe there's some leniency there. I can completely see that. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I can actually justify it and understand it. And that was kind of the thing you were discussing the other day when I was like, well, hold on a second. So I do see that. Now, my counter is this, and I am a Will Wade guy. And for me, I think my expectations for LSU basketball, and this has been a debate I've had with some of my listeners, like, well, you're recruiting 5-star kids left and right. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, but that's not traditional for LSU. Like, I know you want to be good at everything, but LSU's not a basketball school. They're really not. Like, right. I am. Have I seen LSU go to a Final Four as I've been alive? Well, I don't remember the ones in the 80s under Dale, but I sure as hell remember the ones with Brady.
Right.
But that's not normal. Like, my expectation for LSU basketball is be an NCAA tournament team every year. I think in Baton Rouge at LSU, you should be a tournament team every year minimum. You make it to the second weekend, bro, we're talking lanyard. That's awesome.
Right.
So Will Wade, to me, has met what I have for expectations for LSU basketball, and in a way exceeded it because they're consistently good. Is it frustrating at times by the way they play with the talent they have? I think we'd all agree that they would. But it he got in trouble, and here's the biggest issue: his stupidity. Dude, he didn't do anything that every single program in the country who wants to get to that level did. He didn't. Let's be honest. I could write a book. I've done this. We talked like 20 years from talking to reading books like Andy Staples' Guide to Cheating.
Right.
To me market, to the conversations I've had off the record with coaches. Brother, this has gone on for years, and the stories, I would say, blow your mind. But hell, we should all know this now.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do anything different that not just basketball coaches have done, football coaches.
Right.
Okay, he at this level, you're going to cheat. I know people hate that C word, but you are. Where I think Wade failed is, you know what? Usually you let your assistants do that. Maybe Will, young in his coaching career, I don't trust these guys to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good with it. And he got caught. So I'm not even mad. I'm not mad he played the game. I want you to be successful by any means necessary. You got caught. And that's the issue. And I think LSU is guilty as sin. Guilty as sin on this. But at the same time, am I mad about it? Absolutely not.
You know, the thing, Sean, and to the point that when we were discussing on Twitter is this. I just don't. So, like, I read the James Craig affidavit, right? It's not that long. It's about 3 pages long about what he talks about with Will Wade. And I sit there and read it, and he's making the claim that he's investigated through the NCAA about a level 3 recruiting violation that he didn't even go, he didn't put forth, and yet he's fired with cause, which, look, LSU did what they had to do or what they believed they had to do. I'm okay with that. I've known Brad Davis as a former offensive lineman for over 17 years. It's an upgrade. However, I don't want the correlation of Will Wade being investigated to trickle over to football, right? Like, or any sport. And that's the only thing for me that's like, I'm kind of just done with it. Like, Sean, you talk about 20 years of your experience. I started this in 2018, late 2018, 2019, Will Wade suspended. And the only thing that I feel like I'm talking about from a basketball perspective is Will Wade's investigation. And so I'm just ready, quite honestly, for it to be done. I don't want Will Wade fired. I think I agree with my buddy Matt Trent from WBRZ. He's like, Will Wade fits the culture here, right? Like, he fits.
But don't you love the fact that he doesn't give a blank? Like, he's like, what?
I do.
Like, I've never seen a guy tell his bosses, kiss my ass, I'm not meeting with you. I mean, Blake, you follow football and sports as long as I have, if not long. How many times have you seen a guy get suspended for months and keep his job? I've never seen it.
Never seen, right.
So to me, Will Wade's almost like a cockroach. Like, I have to believe it. I'm dead. Like, I have to. You can tell me there's all this stuff on Will Wade. I'm like, okay, I still got to see it to believe it.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, and look, the word allegations too, okay, it means, and a lot of people take the word allegations as the end all be all gospel, but what it really is a notice of proof. Is what it really should be listed as. And so I'm just really looking forward to seeing what they have here. Sean Fox is joining us. Go ahead, brother.
I know every time I'm interviewed, I end up interviewing other people because I'm fast. Because I care about your opinion. That's what it means. Right. And you've made the point, and it's very fair. And I think most of the people who are listening to this show would be like, well, I don't want it to affect football either. If LSU made a run to a Final Four this year, would it change your opinion? If LSU basketball got to be on par as LSU football and were as good, and the expectation went from being a tournament team to, damn, if we keep Will Wade, we might be a Final Four team on a semi-regular basis. Would your opinion change?
No, only because I'm super biased, right? Like, and I'll admit
it's your honesty. Yeah.
I'll admit that I'm just so enamored with football, and that's my sport. Yeah. Now, but now coming into this world of media and covering LSU, it would have to change, and I understand that. Like, I have to grow and change, and maybe so.
He's a great soundbite.
Right.
There's a lot to, like, we joked about this. Like, he's got the most punchable face of anybody in college athletics. My producer calls him the human pear. Like,
right.
But I love it. Like, I will wait. Like, the general, I'm on board. Like, there's so many things that I get why people don't like him. Hell, I'll make fun of him all the time. But hey, there's just that other part where he kind of gets us. I think he fits the culture, and I love his do something attitude to the NCAA specifically, who we all know. Let's be honest, like where's this going to go? Well, to me, and this is a discussion we had on Twitter, those NOA that they got, nothing that Scott Woodward saw should surprise him. Like,
correct.
I think they know this, and I know there are a little bit of differences, but remember, like Nevin Shapiro, I remember reading the Yahoo Sports report on the U, and I think it took me 30 minutes, and I read it word for word on the air. They had Miami football dead to rights. Whatever happened to Miami football?
Right.
North Carolina was making fake classes.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, if you challenge the NCAA and tell them to stick it, there's a pretty decent chance you win. Now, is that going to be the case this time? I don't know, man. Will Wade's got a punchable face, so I think a lot of people don't like. So this may be the downfall. But again, to me, he's the cockroach. I got to see him get squashed to believe it.
And Sean, that's the only thing for me is the not knowing is the fear that I have for the overall program of LSU. I don't want to get hit with a lack of institutional control.
Worst thing you can get hit with.
Correct. And then Will Wade's been pissing people off. Like that's the only thing for me that I worry about. And just look, we'll have to see. But even Art Briles, to some extent, I know that I'm not talking about the Grambling thing, but about 7 months ago, they came down with the Baylor violations, and it was not even a slap on the wrist. It was a love tap. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, and look, I'm a little liberal in my thinking, but you have hookers on campus at Louisville and Baylor, and you're paying for them to be there, and they get a slap on the wrist, but we're making this Will Wade thing a little bit bigger than what it is. However, notice of allegations is one thing, but I'm like you in that aspect, like, come on, man. Are we making this a little bit bigger than what it maybe be? Or maybe is.
Biggest reason we are is because he was literally caught on tape.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest difference. And he has been so bullish and just so, like, again, I will never, not to just keep regurgitating the same things, but to me, this is one of the greatest upsets. The fact that this dude's like, Will, we need to meet with you about this. Nah. Not going to do it. And he kept his job. And actually, you know what's even more amazing, Blake, and I say this on my show every year, this dude has recruited better.
That's what's wild about that.
Since this is coming. Because you know why? I think these kids embrace the American gangster. He doesn't get blanked. Yeah. And I think it's kind of appealing to these kids.
Right. I could definitely see that. And Marvel Allen, I kind of somewhat said it's like, look, Will Wade's going to tell me like it is, and that's how my dad is, and his dad's standing behind there, and he's saying, like, hey, the reason we're going with Will Wade is because he reminds me of my dad about when we're on the court, and I think that you got to embrace that and love that. So, look, we'll see. Hopefully they win today and they keep winning, and hopefully, we'll find out in a couple of months.
Worst case scenario is lack of institutional control, and you basically got the death penalty. You're not death penalty because there's too much money involved. Nobody's going to get SMU anymore. But if they do get that, LSU basketball will be bad for a very long time.
Well, the only thing, Sean, and then because this, in our business is called a transition. I don't think Brian Kelly, though, when it comes to all of this, I don't think Trace Armstrong lets Brian Kelly take this job if overall it's going to be a big thing. Yeah. I don't think Scott Woodward takes this. You mean to tell me that Scott Woodward didn't do his due diligence on when to come back to LSU if something was really going to hurt the program, right? Like, that's the one faith that I have on that.
And that is that you are so glad that Scott Woodward in a time like this is actually the one leading the program, because he is true and true. One, a great AD, but also he is a LSU guy.
Right.
So he's going to do whatever it takes to keep LSU. Look, making the tough decisions like Ed Orgeron, what a story that was. I mean, it was a storybook, but that was a tough decision to make, and he's made some tough decisions so far, and that's the thing about him. He's not afraid to make tough decisions. He's not afraid to swing for the fences. I mean, I remember when the Mulkey stuff, and I know we're going everywhere, but when there was rumors about Mulkey, I'm like, Mulkey ain't leaving Baylor. Mm-hmm. That's her school. Like, they're going to name the arena after her. what do I know? I mean, she's
Right.
what Scott Woodward wants. I mean, who would have thought Brian Kelly would have left Notre Dame?
Not me.
So the only thing is going to basketball. If you get rid of Will Wade and you're slapped with lack of institutional control, who the hell wants this job? So to me, if you've gotten rid of Will Wade, is that a sign that you know something bad's about to happen?
Well, and I think their silence is golden too, right? Like their silence is completely golden.
It's fascinating to see where this goes. I hope, and this probably won't be the case, I hope Will Wade shoves it up everybody's tail this year to make a hell of a run and he sticks around. But I mean, I'm 60-40 right now. This may be the end.
Yeah, I think it's a strong possibility because look, let's not, and I want to get to football with you here too before we get you out of here, but let's not act like Scott Woodward doesn't want a statue of his damn self out there and completely changing this whole. So there's a legacy thing I think for Scott too.
He probably wants to make like AD's got egos. They want to make these hires, and outside of football, what's the biggest hire you can make?
Basketball, or well, here baseball maybe, but yeah. Basketball from a national perspective. Sure. But from a national perspective too, I mean, people aren't nationally following LSU baseball like maybe we do or Louisiana Tech or whatever.
But baseball is a Southern sport,
right? So. Getting over to football though, and transitioning to that, Sean Fox joined us. Just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Look, there's something, Foxy, that for me that I'm and a guy that played collegiately that I'm focusing on a lot with Brian Kelly is accountability. Oh yeah. Now we've talked, to players, to coaches, to staff members. Multiple players have come out and talked about the accountability teams, how he's motivating. I watched Kyle Hamilton go on with Colin Cowherd on the volume, and he's talking about like, hey man, if there's one human being on the planet that I have faith in to go to LSU and win right now, it's Brian Kelly.
And I discussed that on your show.
Right. And so, like, to me, I look at this and think to myself, like, it's a complete 180 of accountability and what's going on. I guess since he's been hired to now, and you see what Brian Kelly's doing, what have you seen that you like a lot in the transition from Ed Orgeron to Brian Kelly?
How strong can our language be on here?
Very strong.
Bullshit's done.
Right.
I mean, you got the bullshit.
Correct.
Brian, look, I think he has a way with us perception, like those of us not in the locker room, that's kind of a bit off-putting, but I don't really care about, like, I just want you to win, right? Yeah, I don't have to like you. I don't have to be your buddy. I think Les was, when he's not kissing girls and making them cry like Ric Flair, I loved Les, right?
Right.
Les was your crazy uncle, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a very appealing, and I could tell stories about having a conversation with Les. And I shared this on Carter's show one day. We can share it. You'll have me back. We'll talk about it. Where I had to step off the air one day to talk to Les on the eve of signing day about Ruben Randall, where I thought it was crazy stuff. It was crazy stuff. But Les was your crazy uncle, and then like was just, dude, he was us, especially like deep south of it. Like he was one. Like how could you not like it? But they didn't. They were flaws. Right. And we looked past, I'm talking me looked past it for a while because we liked him.
Correct.
I don't know if we're going to really like Brian Kelly, but that doesn't matter because I think Brian Kelly's all about that business. And as long as you're winning, that's fine. And I think he's some way with those outside the locker room. I think he's more likable to those kids.
Mm-hmm.
And just if you're willing to embarrass yourself, and everybody knows you're the punchline with the whole recruiting thing and the dancing, he's still doing it.
Right.
I love it. So he might not seem like he interacts well with people, but he actually does with the people that matter the most. And those are the kids that he's recruiting. And I think he's the leaks that were there in the past, because even when things were good, there were leaks in the pipes. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be leaks in the pipes. There's a reason that he waited till when he did, and did it the way he did when he introduced us as coaches. I think everything Brian Kelly does is by design, where we might like when a guy will shoot off the hip like Les, like O, but guess who doesn't do that either?
Right, Brian Kelly. Right.
And who was the guy that didn't do that 3 coaches before?
Nick Saban.
He ain't shooting from the hip.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is by design. So, will it be as fun? I don't know. It's going to be way more buttoned up, but I think it's also going to be really, really successful.
You know what's fun for me, Sean, though? And the great Hal Mummy told me this, okay, when I was getting recruited to Southeastern. You know what's fun? Winning. And so it doesn't matter what I'm telling you and yelling at you. There's a reason I'm yelling at you. I recruited you to be a part of my team.
Yep.
Like, if you think that I don't care about you,
you wouldn't be there.
You wouldn't be here, right? And so go out there, run your 110s, do all this. And I think Brian Kelly is selling that. Again, listening to Kyle Hamilton, like, hey, bro, I left Georgia. I was going to Georgia, and I went to Notre Dame because Brian Kelly sold me on a vision.
Yep.
And he beat Kirby Smart for that vision. And so I think about that, and he talks about the process and how it helped him. And I really do like that, and not firing off at the hip. So
but
it's
also was so successful at a place that I think is really hard to be successful.
I agree.
I mean, when we were growing up, like, oh man, Notre Dame, NBC, like nobody cares about that now. I mean, the recruits they once did. I mean, now look, the balance of the powers in the South. The kids want to play in the SEC. They want to play at Clemson. They want to. I mean, that's where the balance of power is, and the fact that, well, they got killed in the playoffs. But to me, it's like, yeah, but they got to the playoffs with that. And can you imagine what they can do with this kind of talent? There wasn't, like, you're not going to get past where they were. It just wasn't. There's enough proof. And I think Brian Kelly knew that. Like, look, I can only get to this threshold here. But, man, I get that Southern talent. Just here, just this state, you can be very, very successful.
You know what's wild to me, and I'm going to keep this a little close to the vest, but it is the only thing that I've really heard coming out of here is I've never had a wide receiver like Kayshon Boutte. Now, I've had Will Fuller. I've had, other guys that are really good, but this is Kayshon Boutte, a top possibly 10 pick in the NFL draft. Oh, by the way, the best defensive lineman I might have ever had, I might have two of them on this team, and Mason Smith and Jaquelin Roy. That's the kind of stuff that you take a step back and like, bro, like, that's what he's talking about when he makes a transition. Now, Fox, the last thing, football, and then we'll get you on out of here. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Is Brian, you talked about Brian Kelly being calculated, and obviously the biggest question around a football team is obviously the quarterback.
Yeah.
They go and get Jayden Daniels. Being calculated to that. Do you think that Brian Kelly sends a message with a move like that without really having to say two words about the quarterback position? I mean, look, Miles has been here for a long time, but you go and get another kid out of the portal that wants to play now. I mean, you got to be sending some type of message, right?
You can't help but feel for Miles.
Right.
He's been the consummate teammate. He really has. And just, if he had any luck, it's bad luck. And my heart does. And he's not bad. Like, he was historically good. The first 3 games he had as a starter, despite LSU being 1-2, it wasn't because of Miles. Like, really, he had one bad half against Mississippi State in that season. Other than that, Miles Brennan was a really good quarterback. But, Blake, you mentioned, and this goes back to what we were talking about, everything he does is by design. Like, he cares about one thing. He cares about winning. That's it. And if you're going to hurt some feelings along the way, man, that's part of it. And I think if you go back, and I know you have, looked at what Mike Denbrook historically likes to run, dude, Miles, but he ain't it.
Correct.
He like, you have to have an athletic quarterback to run his system. Like, go look at Ritter last year. Leading it, I think he only had 300 yards rushing last year, but the year before that, like, he was the second leading rusher on the team. Go back to his time at Notre Dame, Windbush, Zaire, guys that, I mean, I wouldn't say they were great runners, but they could at least extend plays with their feet. I think Miles Brennan has an NFL arm.
He definitely does.
You and I both know athleticism ain't it. Like that, but he's like Frankenstein back there. Could he make all the throws, and do I think he could be successful in a lot of different offenses? 100%. But if you're asking him to read and run, dude, he ain't doing that.
Right.
And now you went and got a guy, and that's not to say he won't end up winning this job. He might, and I'm rooting for the kid because of everything we just said before that. But if you're looking for a guy to run the offense like you want to run it, you just got him from the portal.
Yeah, and that's the only thing for me. I think the biggest thing is, like, sometimes you do have to get a quarterback that runs your type of system. It doesn't like, for example, you're not letting Drew Brees or Kirk Cousins or Tom Brady go up to Baltimore and run their type of system with Lamar Jackson. You have now you can make systems around a elite quarterback like a Brees or Tom Brady, but you're not doing that. You're going to get a guy that fits what you want to do because it's what you feel comfortable with. And look, can Miles do some really damn good things, Sean? Yes.
He can make every throw.
Every throw. And nobody, and myself included, believes that he can go out there and light up a scoreboard. The question is obviously, can he stay healthy, and other questions that we have about him. But it doesn't mean that he's not a good quarterback. But let's see how it goes.
And I'll ask you, for somebody who played, would you rather face a Miles Brennan, or would you rather face a guy who, God dang it, I look up, he's 30 yards downfield? Like, as a fan, I hate going against running quarterbacks.
Me too.
You could have perfect coverage, you could have great pressure, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 7. You think you got to stop, and they're 13 yards downfield.
Sean, I talk about this on my show. As I went to a coaches convention where Nick Saban talked, and I think it was pretty sure it was in New Orleans, and he talked about, I would rather, and basically I'm summing it up, but basically he's saying, I would rather get picked apart through the air than have a guy run on me all day long. It drives
nuts.
Right. It drives him insane. And so even as a former offensive lineman, like, bro, I've seen guys like Fletcher Cox. I've seen a good buddy, Carter Bryant, even sends me his rookie card, Fletcher Cox. Shout out to my boy Fletcher. But he, I know that there's going to be one time that he's going to get the best of me, if not multiple times. And at least I have a guy that can run and know and can get out of there. And I always felt so bad about a quarterback that just couldn't move. Like, hey, man, and it changes, Sean, as a center, it changes how you call things too.
Sure.
Right? It completely changes everything from the line of scrimmage, the way that you call things.
And Blake, let's go back. When did the Burrow key get unlocked? You remember? It wasn't. It was at the end of 2018 when he started running the football a little bit. And Joe, while he's not going to be confused with Lamar Jackson, he was athletic enough, and he made a ton of plays the national championship year.
No.
If it was 3rd and 5 and stuff broke down, he could get you 6 or 7. You have to have that. And I just think Miles is a lot of things. He ain't that.
What's the last thing, and I'll get you out of here. What's so wild is talking to Steve Ensminger, and he's like, Blake, you do realize we went 5 wide on 3rd and goal from the 2-yard line, and when we ran a quarterback draw, and everybody thought we were throwing the football. That's how dynamic the offense was. Like, it's just crazy to think about that. And look, I like Miles. I like Jaden. I think it's for the system that you want to run, you have to have a mobile quarterback. So we'll see.
And I think when you start going down who's the mobilist, you start with Jaden, and then you probably go Walker Howard, then you go Nussmeier. And unfortunately, Miles is going to be at the bottom of the list. You start talking about who can make that throw 50 yards down the field on the line, you probably put Miles
right
at the top of that list. But what is it that you and I both know, if it ends up being, and I do think when they start against Florida State, Jaden Daniels is going to be the guy.
I agree with that.
Miles Brennan sticks around, and we're in an era where who the hell knows who's going to stick around if they don't get the start. Nussmeier could be. Hell, Walker Howard might decide to leave. I think he's probably the least likely. Mm-hmm. But the offense, which if for some reason Jaden doesn't work, the offense will look different with Miles Brennan from what you originally think they want to run. They have to. To your point, you got to curtail it to the strength of their quarterback, and it ain't RPOs.
Right. And look, we can talk schematics all day long, but in today's game, you go after a certain thing, and even in recruiting, they're going after dual threat type of quarterbacks.
You're always listen, but you've seen this firsthand. Your job as a coach, as much as we like Walker Howard, right? He's the future. What are they going to try to do next year? Bring in Arch Manning, right? You're always recruiting to better than the guy you've got every single year. You're always trying to recruit up. That's just the nature of this profession. If you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong. You're always trying to find the replacement.
Alabama source told me this. There's this kid, Jalen Milroe, that's on their team, quarterback. He's not the best of throwers, but my God, can he run? And so when I see Saban doing it, I'm like, well, if Saban's doing it, why shouldn't I?
And his biggest strength to me is his ability to adapt. Saban does stuff he says he hates, but he does it because he knows. You know how cutthroat that son of a gun is? Listen to this. We want to feel bad for Miles. The dude ran off Bear Bryant's grandson.
Correct.
I mean, come on. That Bear Bryant's grandson. Dude, you ain't good enough.
That's
So,
you want to talk about the American gangster.
I mean, that he don't care. Saban cares about one thing: winning. And you've probably heard stories. I've talked to coaches around here, and I'll leave with this. I won't say it was recruiting, but this is when Saban had first gotten to Alabama, and I was at a local high school, and I had just missed him. And I was talking to the coach about it. He was trying to make small talk. He goes, "Coach, I really don't give an F. What do I got to do to get this kid?" I don't care about your fishing hole or anything like that. What do I have to do to get this kid?
Right.
And I mean, that's just, dude, he's all like Kelly. Look, I know that's high standards, but this is the close personality wise that you're going to get to Nick.
Well, and talking to a local high school coach, that's what they're saying. Like, hey man, love that you love to fish, but what do I got to do to get him?
Yeah.
So it's Sean Fox. Let him go listen to him. He's great, always one of the best guys in our local media doing it. Sean, tell everybody, I know they already know, but just in case they don't, where they can find all this stuff.
Well, you're kind to think that they do, but thanks. Yeah, I'm on the air every day in North Louisiana, 3 to 6, Sports Talk 97.7. But you've obviously got an audience that's statewide. You can catch it online, sportstalk977.com, or download the app from your Play Store. If you've got a flip phone, I'm sorry, we can't help you there. But 977 Sports. We actually have a co-host who has a flip phone. God love him. I'm not kidding. Yeah. So we're on every day, except for today. Ironically, I got bumped for women's basketball. So I'm just gonna go drink now and watch basketball.
Hey, isn't that fun though? It's fun to be able to go and drink and just relax, man.
Every now and then we need it. Look, I got a ton of respect for what you do, Blake. I've watched your ride. But we are blessed, and I know this because I left for a few years to do this for a living.
No doubt.
Also, people understand that the prep work that you put in it, and it is a job. And man, sometimes I thought my show was shit yesterday, but but you know what? Still having a shitty show beats digging ditches, I guess. So
absolutely. Look, I had a show that I thought was horrendous the other day, and it got the most interaction.
And we're our biggest critic.
No doubt. And my wife asked, like, why do you not listen to yourself when you're editing video? You just monitor it. It's like, I cannot stand listening to myself. I do it.
Listen to my own stuff ever.
Me either. I can't do it.
Me neither. I just, you know what? And I think we're in the majority of that.
Right.
I said, like when people say, I hate the sound of your voice, I'm like, I get it.
Oh, dude. I hate this. It's like I feel awkward the whole time. It's like somebody's on the chalkboard just scratching down. But nevertheless,
Sean, I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. So
me too, brother. All right, it was good having you. We'll talk again soon. We'll bring you on. Thank you so much, man.
Please bring me back, and I'm gonna return the favor, pal.
Absolutely.